Sia lodato Gesù Cristo e
May Christ be praised, and onward with Mary.
tutti quelli che continuano a
All those who
sostenere,
continue to argue, for one reason or another, who are convinced or not, that perhaps Jorge Mario Bergoglio is Pope of the Catholic Church,
si trovano in una
find themselves in a situation, as time passes, that is increasingly embarrassing and weak.
Col passare degli anni, di fronte a questa
As the years go by, in the
menzogna,
face of this unprecedented lie, the partisans, the praetorians of the so-called Pope Francis, who is not the Pope according to the laws of the Church, appear weaker and weaker.
questo è il punto di partenza.
This is the starting point in their utterances and their attempts to convince others that Pope Francis is the legitimate Pope.
Gli altri che Papa Francesco,
In fact, until today,
in realtà si noti
we see more and more clearly a desperate attempt to prove to themselves that Bergoglio is Pope of the Catholic Church.
Bergoglio è Papa della Chiesa Cattolica. E così noi
We can see that today we are in the presence of a church of Logos and a false church of chaos. We see very well this sharp, increasingly sharp distinction in almost 10 years of deception. As it has never so happened in the Catholic Church, you have a church of the Logos where the Logos dominates. And on the other side, we are in the presence of the opposite of the Logos, the antithesis of the Logos, which is reason, which is truth. And the antithesis of the Logos is the chaos. And the partisans of Bergoglio, or all those who persist without ever wanting to stop to reason respectfully and peacefully about the matter, find themselves in an increasingly chaotic condition because they are unable to answer the questions that we have been raising for a couple of years now. The enemies of the Logos, my dear ones, are enemies of themselves. They are therefore not defenders, first of all, of Pope Francis, but of the deep shadows of their conscience. They are, ultimately, enemies of themselves, and therefore defenders of chaos. I like to call all these enemies, scattered all over the social networks, assistants to the evaporation of Roman Catholicism, to use an image of Diego Fusaro, who needs no introduction. He talks about the evaporation of Roman Catholicism. Well, these such who are of the Church of Chaos and who deny the Logos, enemies of the Logos, enemies of their own conscience, and ultimately enemies of themselves, are assistants at the forefront of the evaporation of Roman Catholicism. And there's one thing that, beyond the diversity of their positions, holds together all the assistants of the evaporation of Roman Catholicism, the defenders of the Church of Chaos. A common denominator is the so-called unease, first of all internal, which manifests itself in violent, aggressive, offensive retorts to legitimize, first of all, in front of themselves, that Jorge Mario Bergoglio was placed there as Cardinal Gottfried Daniels, who spoke of a mafia of St. Gallen, demonstrated without being forced to do so. He was placed there by ecclesiastical Freemasonry to destroy, as is evident, Roman Catholicism. Therefore, with enemies there is very little to do. They write that I am not available to debate, and you all know that I'm always here waiting to do so. No one asks me directly, however. They write that I refuse to debate. They are shaken by the resentment of their own conscience, not by Don Minutella's voice, but it just so happens there that Don Minutella's voice matches and agrees perfectly with their consciousness. And so, between their consciences and Don Minutella's voice, they interpose themselves with their captiousness, as I will now demonstrate, with a, let's say, inability to delve into the issues, relying instead on insults. Is that understood? Their insults, their slander, their attempts at delegitimizing me, they are superficial, par excellence, and sometimes, as I will demonstrate tonight, these enemies of the Logos, these assistants of chaos and of the false church, ultimately do nothing but be uncomfortable with themselves because they are obviously dishonest. I want to start with a video. We will see it twice. Right away, I will show it to you now. It is the speech of Monsignor 𝐤'𝐼𝐵, personal secretary of Pope Benedict XVI, who spoke October 7th, 2022, at the 𝐓𝐮𝐿UMSA, one of the universities in Rome. And he made a curious statement that I beg you to listen very carefully. I will anticipate right away. Notice the absolutely off-the-cuff style of Monsignor 𝐤'𝐼𝐵. He seems almost crazy. He seems like someone out of his depth, saying things there and then, seemingly nonsensical, provoking the audience, and above all, at the end of the 2 minutes, he says things that will shock you and that give credit to the work of those who are proving that Pope Benedict is in the impeded see. Let's listen to him a first time, and then afterwards I will make a brief comment, and we'll listen to him again, after we've pointed out a couple of things, and then I will finally respond in order to Arturio Periodista, Giovanni Zanone, Marco Tullio Aletia, Radio Spada, and Don Tullio Rotondo, just to have a small selection, because alas, as defenders of chaos, there are plenty similar to them. I beg the director to air the clip. The word goes to His Excellency Georg Ganswein, prefect of the papal household and secretary of Pope Benedict XVI, who will give us his greeting. Thank you. Thank you, magnificent rector. I've already done the greetings, so now I will not do how to say the protocol. Understood? Or should I do it officially? No, we're in an informal setting. We are brothers and sisters, after all. Can you do this in a Catholic way? Thank you for the invitation. Before I came here, I prayed with Pope Benedict, as every Catholic priest does, the Vespers. Then we talked about the book, and then first of all, about all the guests and all the presenters. And he said to me, first of all, don't make an institutional greeting. Make a personal greeting. Greet everyone from me and tell everybody that I didn't deserve this illustrious list of presenters. I said many times to him, but if I say this, they will not believe me. They will not believe me. However, I said I will obey. So either you believe or you don't believe. If you don't believe, read either Jeremiah or how do you say Isaiah in Italian? Isaiah. Thank you. I won't say which verse and which chapter, but there is the answer. My dear ones, it is simply a shocking document that we have heard, and which obviously the Freemasons try to keep contained and not let circulate. A Monsignor 𝐤'𝐼𝐵, as we can see, with an unexpected style that is jarring, that stuns, because it is absolutely out of the context of a book presentation, where one expects a speech about the book, a serene, calm, academic speech. Monsignor 𝐤'𝐼𝐵 goes up to the microphone and seems almost angry. And then ultimately, he provokes his interlocutors and says, do I have to follow protocol? Get it? And then he turns toward those who stand as leaders of the participants at the table of, let's say, the representative, and actually says, got it? Got it? What does that even mean, got it? Should I do the protocol? Understood? I really think only the chaos devotees won't get into it. In 2 minutes, 𝐷𝐚𝐝𝐲𝐲 does something absolutely unbelievable. Do I have to be diplomatic? He adds. The protocol. Understood. Diplomatic. Then he doubles down. Can't it be done in a Catholic way? As brothers and sisters. Got it? Can't this be done in a Catholic way? What does all this mean? What does it mean it can't be done in a Catholic way? Have to do it. He explains immediately afterwards and says, I come here to tell you what Pope Benedict told me. I prayed before I came here, and he adds, every Catholic priest does. What does this mean if not that true Catholicism consists in praying in union with the Pope? It's so obvious. And then he adds, I asked Pope Benedict what to say, and he adds, 𝐷𝐴𝐻𝐼, that is. He told me, Pope Benedict did. Don't give an institutional greeting. Look, that's a nice shot of... don't give an institutional greeting. Come on now. Give a personal greeting. And then he adds the content of this personal greeting. He says that he turns to Pope Benedict and says, Holy Father. He calls him Holy Father. Cultists of chaos. Acolytes of the liar. He calls him Holy Father. There is only one Holy Father. Just stop it now. We are done with this tragic farce. With this Masonic play that is ruining the Church. Only one can be called Holy Father. One and only one. Either it is Pope Benedict, or it is Pope Francis. Or am I wrong? Or is it me who is out of my mind? Somebody answer me, please. About the chaos, the cultists, the enemies, the Judas Iscariots of their own conscience. Answer this if you are able. He called him Holy Father. Until proven otherwise, there is only one Holy Father. Because he is Pope Emeritus. He should have said the Pope Emeritus then. He should have said, I don't know what, but not Holy Father. And then he adds, I said to the Holy Father, Holy Father, they won't believe me. They won't believe me. And he adds, on behalf of the Holy Father, and here is the final passage that, look, is a saber rattling. No doubt we are living decisive moments. In the past, I had spoken. Those who have been following me for years know this, that so many have left, because the path is difficult, as 𝐷𝐴𝐻𝐼 makes it clear. But recently I said, 2023 will be a decisive year. And look, these are decisive words. These, they won't believe me, they won't believe me. And the Holy Father tells them, how can you make it clearer than that? If you don't believe, read Jeremiah and Isaiah. There you will find the explanation. And he adds, provocatively, throwing the audience into shocked embarrassment. He adds, 𝐷𝐴𝐻𝐼. Now let's listen to it again, so you'll have, so it becomes clear. He adds, I don't tell you the chapter or the verse. Look it up and you will find it. One goes and searches, as did the always excellent journalist Andrea Cionci, who I don't understand why from here and there he has to always be placed under suspicion. But he's doing a work that will make history, my dear children. It is historical work. He was the first in one of his articles to trace the text because he understood that it was a code. That there are those who are always there saying, the code. This is not right. It's not spiritual. Forgive me, but I bring you an example. Jesus goes to the temple when he was close to his passion and says, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. Do you remember that? And rightly, because he's speaking in code, it's an amphibology. Even that, those present, precisely because those who have eyes do not see and those who have ears do not hear, so that they may divide the children of the Logos from the children of chaos. This temple was built in 46 years, and you will rebuild it in 3 days. John adds, he spoke about the temple of his body. Was this not Jesus' coded language or not? Answer me. Why be surprised that Pope Benedict does this? Pope Benedict is following the Logos. Pope Benedict is in the impeded sea, and now more than ever, he is playing his cards. But let's see. One searches through the many chapters of Jeremiah, and Dr. 𝐸𝐵𝐻𝐶 is able to locate the text, and one is shocked, because Monsignor 𝐥'𝐴 says, I won't tell you the chapter. What a strange way of speaking. Does it seem normal to you? But does it seem normal to you? Or is this maybe a provocation of those who, seeing that Pope Benedict is moving more and more decisively towards his appointment with God, are sending the decisive strides from his side? But they are also sending them from the other side. Kind Minutella, referring to the false letter that I received. Pope Benedict is grieved that you with the 8 priests say Mass. It was all false. It is a decisive moment. There is heavy artillery at play here. Barrage fire, dear children. I don't tell you, says Monsignor 𝐥'𝐴, the chapter and the verse. You will find it. And what we can find there? Go to chapter 36 of Jeremiah, verse 5. It is not my merit. It's 𝐸𝐵𝐻𝐶's credit for doing this research. And I never give myself credit that I don't have. I'm always respectful. I hope others do, and at least give me credit for being the first. I would cherish that. Anyway, 𝐸𝐵𝐻𝐶 singles out Jeremiah, chapter 36, verse 5. Are you ready? Are you ready to hear what it says? I am impeded and cannot go into the temple of the Lord. Let's listen to Monsignor 𝐥'𝐴's audio again, and now it's clear. Immediately the word goes to His Excellency Georg Ganswein, Prefect of the Papal Household and Secretary of Pope Benedict XVI, who will give us his greeting. Thank you. Thank you, Magnificent Rector. I've already done the greeting, so now we'll do how to say the protocol. Understood? Or should I do it officially? No, we're in an informal setting. We're brothers and sisters after all. Can you do this in a Catholic way? Thank you for the invitation. Before I came here, I prayed with Pope Benedict, as every Catholic priest does, the Vespers. Then we talked about the book, and first of all, about all the guests and all the presenters. And he said to me, first of all, don't make an institutional greeting, make a personal greeting. Greet everyone from me and tell everyone that I didn't deserve this illustrious list of presenters. I said many times to him, but if I say this, they will not believe me. They will not believe me. However, I said I will obey. So you either believe or you don't believe. If you don't believe, read either Jeremiah or Isaiah. How do you say Isaiah in Italian? Isaiah, thank you. I won't say which verse and which chapter, but there is the answer. There, it seems to me that is, at this point, more than evident that 𝐥'𝐴's statement at the LUMSA is undoubtedly a startling statement. I would like to point out right away, however, that given the situation with a clearly apocalyptic flavor that we are experiencing, let us keep ourselves ready for every eventuality. Let us be ready for heavy artillery fire, where it seems, again, it will seem that 𝐥'𝐴, no, he is not the Pope Benedict, he is not with Pope Benedict. He is there, and he is holding him prisoner. No, but Pope Benedict has said that instead he is in communion with Pope Francis, and so on. They will try to produce new evidence because they are in disarray. Never before has the false church of chaos been in such disarray. The affirmation, 𝐥'𝐴's speech at the LUMSA, and then having uncovered that the undersigned letter was false, what compelled Monsignor 𝐥'𝐴 to declare that the letter sent to me was false are two enormous achievements that have forced my enemies to back down. But that's why in this period And here we enter the second part. There are 3 moments. This was the introductory part. And I'm going to the second part and then the conclusion. I was saying, maybe that's the reason why in this period I don't have time to keep up with everything. Of course, you can understand it. Just the fact that I have to prepare one catechesis every day. There are those who complain and maybe even leave because Father Minutella does not receive, he does not do spiritual direction. Forgive me, but tell me, how could I do it? Besides, I already do it in this way, but I don't have the time. There are those who insist, keep on insisting, on meeting with me, and they get hurt. But I just don't have the time, because I have to stop and listen individually to souls. How do I go about the preparation? When do I do the preparation? If I have to pray, there is a ministry of everything. There's a ministry of everything, and an important ministry. So, since I don't have the time, it's been brought to my attention that these days, against yours truly, there is a multi-directional attack from several quarters. I've been spoiled for choice among those things that have been brought to my attention, and I've chosen this evening to demonstrate the pickiness, the shallowness, the total chaos, and in the case of Professor Zanone, the open and obvious intellectual dishonesty that these characters reveal. I've chosen Arturio Periodista, Professor Giovanni Zanone, journalist Marco Tullio, Radio Spada, and finally Don Tullio Rotondo. And putting him last because, at least from what I've seen, Don Tullio is, if nothing else, a little bit more delicately respectful than the others, for whom they have a very low level of communicating. They don't interject. Angry with their own conscience because they feel that the things we say are true, they come down on us with a violence that is unusual. Let's start with Arturio Periodista. Who is he? I don't really know. I know he's a YouTuber who does, in Spanish language, several episodes that are quite followed, but not so much. Basically, I surpass all of them together. I alone surpass all of them together, in terms of numbers, I mean. That's not important when they say it. It's important if I say it, because I'm proud. I don't know why. It's like when Marco Tullio makes everyone think that this is total dishonesty, that I'm not worthy of attention because I ask for financial support by sharing my banking details. Forgive me, but what does the truth have to do with sharing banking details? Who was with Bergoglio in the false church of chaos, who tries to deflect attention from addressing the substance of the matter? Marco Tullio dishonestly concludes by saying, and then one who asks for money and puts out banking details, I don't know if he's to be trusted. Because the fact that they also ask for money, but of course they can do it, they are allowed everything. Dominitella is the one who can't be trusted. Do you get it? Let's proceed in order. Arturo Periodista is a YouTuber who last November 16th held a reflection on his channel entitled Minutella, in addition to the Una Cum, Benedict demands submission to his person as guide and leader of the little remnant. That somehow tells us that I oblige all of you to recognize me as a guide and leader of the faithful, of the little Catholic remnant. Did I ever say that? I said something else. Look at the total dishonesty of this guy. I try not, and I never do it, you see? But when I have to do it, I will. Do you agree that there must be within a group an organization that arises, one who commands, one who directs, and who governs? It seems to me that this is a human, it's logical, it's the logos again. The logos predicts that in an organization someone must direct. Are we there? This happens with movements, for example. Don Guisani was the leader of the CL, Communion and Liberation. Who else? Chiara Lubich was the leader of the Focolarini movement. It is normal that there is a figure who then acts as an interpreter and a spokesman. But to go from that, which is true, that I have said it, to saying that I want to run to be the successor of Benedict XVI, it seems to me that we go from logos to chaos, from honesty to dishonesty. You get it? From professional elegance to the total cowardice of someone who is struggling with his own conscience. Because I never said that. Incidentally, I tell you that this is a Spanish channel because in Latin America, Minutella is increasingly well known and has a contact network. And he speaks this way because in Italy there is a base of people that wears the blue color. And I'll add no more. That provides evangelically suggestions that Minutella is a pedophile, that Minutella is crazy, that Minutella is positioning himself to be the successor of Benedict XVI. God knows the truth. And I'll wait for them at the entrance to heaven to see their faces. And I know what I think. As soon as Benedict XVI dies, what I think I'm going to do, and the captiousness of this Arturio Periodista, who significantly, at this time, airs videos against yours truly, is bordering, as I told you, on dishonesty. He calls me a guru. And that is not an expression that is his, because it comes from the gang. It says that I'm proposing myself, precisely as I told you, to be the guide of the little Catholic remnant. No, as I said to the brethren, I'm only one whom Our Lady has asked. Then if you don't accept this, it's something else. That is, you can argue about that thing there. If you don't accept that I say that it's Our Lady who speaks to me. But it seems to me that Jesus in the Gospel says, by the fruits, you can recognize the tree. I was the first, until proven otherwise. Then one can go to all the chapels one wants, but I was the first to line up in the field, because it's true that someone had pointed it out, but from behind the desk, and it disappeared from the scene. I've been pouring blood for 5 years. They took my Cossack away. I've been excommunicated twice, which is one more than Martin Luther. So maybe it's true, because no one would stand up to the impact, as I am doing, because as soon as I'm attacked, let's say instead of barking, I roar. And he says that at the beginning of 2022 of this year, I said that I'd received an investiture from heaven, a divine one, and he says that it is a scandalous statement. Can you explain to me where the scandal lies? These are chaos cultists. Where is the scandal? Forgive me. There's a scandal if it is not true. Are you following me? So if anything, if I'm honest, let's say that on the contrary, Arturio Periodista says I was entrusted with a mission from heaven. I can, if anything, say I'm not very convinced. I'm waiting for evidence. But I'm not saying it's a scandal, because in itself, logically speaking, one who says he has a divine mission and he's carrying it out, given by the Lord, and he's carrying it out, and this is clearly happening, it is not a scandal. Scandal, it's as if it's not true. Then it has to be proven that it is not true. Why don't they prove it then? Do you see that they stop at the surface? They throw mud, they throw stones, then they hide their hand. Then this Arturio Periodista summons Rinascita Mariana, which is a Facebook profile for which I'm not responsible. If you want to believe me, I don't care. The important thing is that I speak with my conscience. I'm not responsible. I'm not founder and I'm not the promoter, because I don't have the time. I have plenty to do here at Radio Domina. These people write on their initiative. They write interesting things. They have written, Padre Alessandro has received a real investiture from heaven and a very specific mission to gather the little Catholic remnant to tribute someone's statements. Be it given the person closest to me, to yours truly, is or is it not dishonesty? Forgive me. If you, Katia, say something, why should it be attributed to me? You said it, right? I simply said that I have received, and I have said it so many times, a mission from the Blessed Virgin. Let's discuss that. Let's see what the criteria are, Arturio Periodista. And I'll stop here, because it would be very, very, let's say, low to elaborate on the things that he says about yours truly, insisting that I'm a guru, a huckster, that I want to replace the person of Pope Benedict as soon as he dies. But I want to point out one thing of all. He says that I'm wrong in saying that the Mass is invalid in union with Pope Francis. Correct. You're right, Arturo Periodista. However, if you are honest, you have to answer the question whether or not one sins attending Mass in union with heretics. Then we discuss it. But to this question, because they are chaos worshippers, and they are Iscariots of their own conscience, no one answers. No one answers this. I had my bag here. Sorry, I almost forgot I had it. Here it is. I have the book. I brought the book with me. Here it is, I'll show you. Here is the theological Summa Theologia of St. Thomas Aquinas. This is the Pars Terza, Articles 73 to 83. Shall I read it to you what St. Thomas Aquinas says about those who go to Mass with heretics? Cumque autem communicat aliqui in peccato ipsi participis peccati efficitur. That is, anyone who communicates with another in sin comes to share the guilt. You're guilty of Pachamama. You are responsible for the loss of millions of consciences. You are guilty of covering up the gospel. More than your Pope Francis, St. Thomas Aquinas, not Minutella, says that Arturio Periodista Mi intendi, per favor? I'll read it again. Cumque autem communicat aliqui in peccato ipsi particips peccati efficitur. That is, anyone who communicates with another in sin comes to share the guilt. Interesting that Arturio Periodista finds time to point out the danger that Dominitella represents, and then they go to Mass in union with Pope Francis. Worshippers of chaos, Iscariots of their own and others' consciences, enemies of their own Christian dignity. And St. Thomas Aquinas adds, Et Dio peccat cumque erum missum audit vel ab ius accipit sacramenta. That is, and therefore anyone who hears their Mass or receives the sacraments from them sins. Therefore, you don't go and take communion from heretics. And Bergoglio is one. They say, but there must be someone who reveals him as a heretical pope, of course. Do you really think he would look out from the balcony and say, Dear brothers and sisters, today I realize that I'm a heretic. Forgive me. Meanwhile, 𝐥'Zwen says, I'm not telling you the chapter, I'm not telling you the verse. Go after them. I don't know if you realize the incredible moment we are living in. So for the sake of truth, I would suggest to Arturio Periodista to close the YouTube channel, or to stop ignoring the truth, and going to Mass against Pope Francis, because even though I've always been open to this, I've always said that if tomorrow you're witnessing this, this is because, pay attention, they will shuffle the cards. You will see what these people are willing to do. You see it. They are people really without conscience. Remember, I've always said that if the church teaching changes tomorrow, after the storm ends, because sooner or later it will end, right? I like the live stream from the other day. Chonchi talked about eschatological combustion. That is, in an instant, they will all combust. These chaos worshippers who are insisting that Bergoglio is the Pope, while Pope Benedict doesn't know how else to say that he is impeded. But if tomorrow the teaching of the church were to say, Dominitella, you were wrong about this, mind you well. That is, that the Mass was not valid. I will bow my head. I will ask for forgiveness from the teaching church, following saints, because it's important to save one's soul. But to be serene, I will have to ask a question to the teaching church, cardinals, popes, I don't know who. I would say, Their Holiness, Their Eminences, I would like to say this. It is true, I accept what you say, but I did it, compared to you who were silent to keep people, as St. Thomas Aquinas teaches, away from heresy. I didn't know what weapons to use anymore, and so valid or invalid. Anyway, one should not go there to Mass, or am I wrong? They'll say, oh, sure, Dominitella, you're right about that. So instead of burning at the stake, we'll just cut off your head. Understood? Because valid or invalid, you must not go there. It is mortal sin, says Thomas Aquinas. You communicate to the guilt of the one you are in communion with. St. Thomas Aquinas says so in Summa Theologia, Pars Tertia, Quaestio 82, Article 9. I'm not making anything up. Let us now file away poor Arturio Periodista, who is the leader of these chaos cultists, and let's go to Professor Giovanni Zenone, who, for goodness sake, is only moved by the desire for truth to save the Church. He only has at heart the motivation or the salvation of souls. There is no question about that, however. Please, Zenone, do not be hurt. I do not accept lessons in morality from you. You have more than one reason to be silent and keep quiet, and you understand me well. I'll stop here. He, coincidentally, at the same day as Arturo Periodista makes a video on November 16th, and a little cowardly than Arturo Periodista, who at least mentions me by my name. In Italy, on the other hand, I am not to be named. Yours truly is mentioned. In Italy, I'm a specter. I'm a ghost. Professor Zenone, in a November 16th video titled "The Donatist Heretics Are Back," without ever mentioning me, evidently, but I'm ready to retract if that is not the case and apologize. Evidently, he's referring to yours truly, because it makes a whole speech in which, as has been said, I must be honest. I can't listen to him, because I know more than you do, and he says that those who say you should not go to Mass with Pope Francis are Donatists. And Donatism is back because there are those who say the sacraments are invalid. Total dishonesty. I want to hope it is at least crass ignorance. Of the two, the second would be preferable, but maybe it is both. Because the quintessential Donatist, we all know, is the one who says Mass is invalid because the priest is a sinner. Have I ever said this myself? Have I ever said this even once? You see what anger I have inside, because how can you save the Church with this rabble? Cultists of chaos. Have I ever said that Mass is invalid because the priest is a sinner? I've never said that, because otherwise the first one who should not say Mass because it would be invalid is yours truly. Because I wanted to tell you, if you don't know this already, that I'm a sitter, and the Donatist heresy is a real heresy, but it is something else, I say. I say that going to Mass in union with Pope Francis is a mortal sin based on what the Church teaches. And I add that because Bergoglio is head of the Church of Satan, one should not go there. And I don't know if there is the action of the Holy Spirit. It's something else. But of course it sounds nice, with this pickiness that hides who knows what other things, to affirm that I, precisely, am a Donatist. Professor Zenone, as a matter of dignity, as a matter of conscience, rectify your statement. You were referring to yours truly. Otherwise, you're confusing people this way. I was shown enthusiastic comments to this video, and he enjoys it. Understand? He enjoys it. Professor Zenone is the one who has an open matter with yours truly, because in the presentation of a book, of which I was the author and he was the publisher, he asked for an introductory entrance fee of €6 per person, without informing me. Then scandalized people came, and they took it out on me because, as you know, I'm a bit naive. The fault then was mine, but I had no idea whatsoever. Understood? If I'm a Donatist, what are you, Professor Zenone? Everyone should examine their own conscience. Marco Tullio is the most entertaining of all. He is the journalist of Aletheia. He commented in an always very funny way on my statements about Monsignor Ganswin's letter. And before even verifying, maybe Marco Tullio perhaps doesn't know what professional ethics are, to verify whether it was true or false, he went so far as to say that I could have written the letter myself. These are grounds for a lawsuit, you know, because this is public defamation. Because if I wrote it, you're right. But if I didn't write it, you pay. You deserve to pay. If I wrote it, you're right. The bottom line is, these are chaos cultists, because how could I have written it if immediately Don Ariel Levi di Gualdo are showing it on their channels, saying someone from the Vatican gave it to them? Forgive me, how could it have been me who gave it to Don Ariel? What is this, like the Italian comedian Totò? Or a Franco Franchi or Ciccio and Grecia comedy? I don't know. However, since he is a very serious, very interesting, really respectful journalist, how could he conclude in the Bergoglian style, which is the style of total chaos, of the anti-urus? They are in the anti-urus. How does he conclude? He asks, for money, but by giving his banking details. But why? Forgive me. Someone who wrote, if you could allow me, I don't want to be indelicate, but every once in a while it must be done then. It does not look like the only ones who tell the truth are the prostitutes. Someone wrote it because the prostitutes ask for money, yes. But they don't give banking details. They don't announce it. You pay right then and there. It's not that they have banking details, that I know at least, but I may be wrong. Understand? It's something really incredible. The truth doesn't depend on the content. It doesn't depend on the fact that if you ask for financial help, you're not telling the truth. Then they who have been asking us for years for financial support, should there be a resounding boycott? I think so. And finally, I end with Radio Spada and Don Tullio Rotondo. Let's start with Radio Spada. To Radio Spada, who is ironic about yours truly, I would like to ask you to convert and close the channel. You are in deep error. You are blinded by your own pride. Father Pio of Pietrelcina will ask you to account for the evil you are doing. You are radical sedevacantists, for whom the last pope, no less, was Pius XII. And Padre Pio from Pietrelcina, on the other hand, knew the popes up to Paul VI, and during whose reign he died. What then? These ones know more than Padre Pio. Those of Radio Spada who pontificate on the popes, who, yes, it is true, have made errors of perspective, know more than Padre Pio. Because Padre Pio, even the week before he died, wrote a letter in which he reiterated to Paul VI. He died on September 23rd, 1968. Early September, he or whoever wrote for him this letter, but he signed it, in which he said, "Your Holiness, I renew my submission to your person." For these and others, instead, the Pope was Pius XII. I would like to come back for a moment, though. I almost forgot. I thank my guardian angel who reminded me, which is, therefore, Radio Spada. There is no dialogue with you. You are in error, blinded by your own pride. It shows in the way you speak ill of the popes. You speak ill of Paul VI. You speak ill of John the 23rd. Every day you wake up with the intention to speak ill of the popes. Then they talk about the cardinals and bishops. The whole church stopped in the 1950s. Do you realize this? At the threshold of the 1960s, these are stopped at the threshold of the 60s. Do you realize? It is their purpose to speak ill. They live to denigrate the pontiffs. But I want to go back for a moment to the matter I almost forgot of Professor Zenone. And here comes out a conflict that shows how all my enemies are chaos worshippers. Professor Zenone has published for the publishing house of Faith and Culture, but his purpose is only apostolic, correct? He gives books away for free. He gives them away, and a book by, I don't know if you know this priest. Those of you who are new, I think you do, Don Enrico Roncaglia, an old acquaintance. Don Enrico Roncaglia with the publishing house Faith and Culture recently published a book. This book is about magic. Interesting, I would say. It was quite good, and he published it recently with the publishing house Faith and Culture. And they did a symposium, a streaming where Professor Zenone welcomed almost reverent the voice of Don Enrico Roncaglia. Too bad Zenone is someone who says Pope Francis is the Pope. Then I don't get it anymore. Someone should explain it to me. Zenone says Pope Francis is the true Pope, says he is moved by the good of souls, but then when it comes to publishing, to make money, the book of one who says in turn he is in communion with Pope Benedict, which he says is like seeing flying donkeys, that he publishes it. Pecunia non olet, pecunia non olet. Money doesn't smell. Get it? Pecunia non bergogliet, pecunia non olet. A Latin expression about money. Money has no smell as long as it circulates. So Zenone goes on social platforms because, as a lay apostle who loves the truth, he insists on saying, be careful. Every now and then he gets this obsession with Don Minutella without ever mentioning him. Of course, be careful of the gurus, the pseudo-seers. One time I'm a pseudo-seer, another I'm a guru. Be careful of those who speak ill of Pope Francis. Another time I'm the one who speaks ill of Pope Francis. Another time, again, be careful of Donatists. And I'm a Donatist. Because then he publishes the book to Don Enrico Roncaglia, who's exactly in the same direction, because he says Mass in union with Pope Benedict. So forgive me, how does that work? Where is the intellectual honesty then? Where is the consistency? Someone answer me, please. Well, Tullio Rotondo is the last one. I like Father Tullio Rotondo. I don't want to go toe-to-toe with him. He doesn't deserve it, because I feel in my heart, I could be wrong, that he at least will be fair. Maybe because he is a confrere. I don't know. I hope I'm right. But in my opinion, out of all these I mentioned, who are chaos worshippers, intellectually dishonest, aggressors of their own conscience, and therefore aggressive towards Don Minutella, with Don Tullio Rotondo, I don't feel to ascribe him to this category here. I think he's moved by a righteous intention. That is, he has been making posts and videos for a while now, unfortunately not very well followed, in which he says, unfortunately for him, he says that 𝐸'𝐶𝐚 and Minutella are in error, and then he warns all those in the small remnant who are in communion with Pope Benedict. Why? Because Pope Benedict is no longer the Pope. Because the reigning Pope is Francis? Let me help him a little bit. Will you get it through your heads? Do you understand? You must not follow them. I would like to tell Father Tullio Rotondo, first of all. First, if you are honest, dear priest, Father Tullio Rotondo, you should answer this question. Is there or is there not an objective legal error? I ask, if it exists, we must discuss it. If there is an objective juridical error, we have to discuss it, because I think Don Tullio knows, but he never says it, that it's not important what Pope Benedict says in the end, and neither is it important what the cardinals say, because he mentions Cardinal Müller. Cardinal this and Cardinal that, but it's not important. Benedict XVI is the reigning Pope because he did not hand over the munus, as Canon 332, paragraph 2 provides. It is independent of his choice. That is, even if he had wanted to do it, but did not do it in the proper way, he remains the Pope. So it is useless to insist, saying Pope Benedict said, because, by the way, on these statements of the Pope, we have brought up the statements of Monsignor Ганзwein. So, 1-to-1 and ball in the middle, since the World Cup starts tomorrow. Understand? Italy doesn't play, by the way. I would like Argentina to win. If it wasn't that Argentina's in my heart. If it wasn't that but I wanted to say to Don Tullio Rotondo, Don Tullio, let's stop and first of all, let's reflect on the, at least with you, if you want. We can have a meeting, if you want. Let's reflect on the legal error first of all, and then let's reflect on the fact that the legal error does not provide for the Pope to speak on it. That is, if he made the error, grammatical errors that even a layman outside the church, such as Professor Diego Fusaro, says are truly unforgivable, it is not possible that Pope Benedict could have made them without realizing it, also because it is not that he wrote it and delivered it right then and there. One should reflect on this. Why is it not done? You have to address the issue of the canonical error. That is decisive, the canonical error. This insistence that Pope Benedict promised obedience to Pope Francis, that Cardinal Müller confirmed that the Pope is Benedict. Do you see that? Those who say that the Pope is Francis, are wrong. Those who say that the Pope is still Benedict are wrong. It's not a good motivation, because the legal error does not predict the intention of the writer. The Code of Canon Law is clear on sui muneri renuncia. It's right there, understand? It's not like a text of literature. It's not the Divine Comedy. The Code of Canon Law, my dears, for those who don't know, but the wretched jurists who are in the Vatican know it and are silent, it's not the Divine Comedy. You can't interpret it. I mean, the Code of Canon Law is there. You can only apply it. Sui muneri renuncia. That is, he has to renounce that which he announces. Go read Benedict XVI's Declaratio, and it doesn't say munus. How come the Pope did not notice that? Probably because he did not know the Code of Canon Law. Maybe, doesn't it seem reasonable for the Pope who resigns to go and look at what is written and what is required for a proper resignation? I think so. He goes there with his team and studies it. Didn't he notice that it didn't say sui muneri renuncia? Didn't he notice that? Forgive me, but didn't Benedict notice Don Tullio? If he didn't notice it, it means that he's now the Pope, in spite of himself, and not in spite of himself. Monsignor Ганзwein says it. And for the third time, I asked the director to air the contribution, because now really it's the icing on a nice cake, but not with the cream, because I'm sick of cream. What do I know of a nice cake? Here we're in Sicily, so let's go with ricotta cheese. What do I know? A nice cannolo. Go ahead. Immediately the word goes to His Excellency 𝐷𝐤𝐻𝐿, Prefect of the Papal Household and Secretary of Pope Benedict XVI, who will give us his greeting. Thank you. Thank you, Magnificent Rector. I've already done the greetings. Now I don't do how to say the protocol. Do I understand? Or do I have to do it diplomatically? No, we're in an informal setting. We are brothers and sisters. Can you do this in a Catholic way? So thank you for the invitation. And before I came here, I prayed with Pope Benedict, as every Catholic priest does. The Vespers. And then we talked about the book, and first of all, about the guests and the presenters. So he says, first of all, don't make an institutional greeting. I make a personal greeting. Make a greeting from me and tell everyone that I didn't deserve this illustrious list of presenters. I said many times to him, but if I say this, they will not believe me. They will not believe me. However, I will obey. Either you believe or you don't believe. If you don't believe, read either Jeremiah or Isaiah. I'm not saying which verse and which chapter, but there is the answer. Well, I don't say which verse, which chapter, but there is the answer. Chonchi identified the text, Jeremiah, chapter 36, verse 5, I am impeded and cannot go into the temple of the Lord. My dears, the conclusion. We have been for 10 years under a despotic regime where the so-called Pope of Mercy, going to pieces, has been trying to destroy yours truly, and so far he has not succeeded. They seriously thought, after robbing me of my cassock, that the matter was closed. The tour we did in October has terrified them tremendously. Someone inside the Vatican probably wrote that fake letter, noticed the level of dishonesty, corruption, and malevolence that is inside the Holy See, inside the Vatican walls, to replicate in trying to divide Pope Benedict XVI from the little remnant, Benedict XVI from the priests, and Benedict XVI from Father Minutella. Why has it failed, and resoundingly failed? I believe that the intervention of Jesus, and when he, Monsignor Ganswein, says that the letter is false and is a lie, it's an act of great clarity. It's illuminating. He has come down to say, watch out, here we must now intervene because otherwise people will believe that the letter is real and that the true enemies will sing once and for all the victory. But it's not true. The letter is not true. The letter, you understand now, they are furious and arming these here. I don't know if there is money circulating. I don't know. I don't really care. What I'm saying is that these are allies. There is a network of chaos worshippers, of assistants of the evaporation of the Catholic Church, of enemies of the truth, of Iscariots of their own conscience, who are trying far and wide, right and left, to discredit yours truly. In conclusion, I want to tell you that I believe the time is not far off when the truth is slowly coming out. You have to be patient, keep praying, and this is not a battle neither of Pope Benedict and Ganswein on one side, nor of the Marian priestly sodality, nor of Dominitella alone, nor of all of you against Bergoglio, the false pope, who usurps the throne of Peter. This is the Holy Virgin Mary, who has taken the field. I feel sorry for a couple of elegantly graduated popesses who teach Latin and Greek, but it is possible that when Dominitella says, and this should worry them, when he says the Holy Virgin entrusted him with the mission, may be true. And if it's true, it's trouble for everyone. Praise be to Jesus Christ, and onward with Mary.
Non mancate, è il momento di alzare in alto lo stemma della croce e gridare viva la Chiesa Cattolica e viva Papa Benedetto XVI, viva i sacerdoti in comunione con lui.